Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much indeed for watching Inside Government. We continue our conversation with the Kenya Bureau of Standards Managing Director, Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Njiraini. Last week, we were talking about reforms at KEBS. We continue our conversation this afternoon, of course, on reforms and, of course, the future of KEBS and how and the kind of shape that KEBS will take going forward. Thank you very much indeed, and let's continue with this conversation. We left it at how KEBS is facilitating SMEs to do business in this country, and have you since you came up with a policy on how to help and encourage the SMEs, to do business? What has been the impact of that?
We've done a survey together with the board, and we traveled to the Mount Kenya region, visited a number of small, medium enterprises, and interacted with them closely, those that are in agro-processing, those are in small, steel industry, making barbed wire. And we were quite impressed by the responses that we were getting from them, because as a board that sets the policies, that set the standards, it's also very important to move to the people where they are working and understand whether they are facing any constraints. And the essence of that visit was to interact with the SMEs and understand the challenges they are facing. On a positive note, quite a number of them, and they said this is not just saying to please KEBS. They say that a number of KEBS officers have facilitated them to achieve very good results in terms of, for example, those that are manufacturing. We visited one that is manufacturing dairy product, yogurts in Udhaya. I don't remember the name, but they were very happy that we've taken them through the entire process. They are able now to manufacture, products that meet the requirements. Sometimes small mistakes like hygiene, if you have not put a floor, if you have not put tiles in the walls, the bacteria will access your product. And then when you submit the sample, it will fail. And the only thing that you can do is to be receptive of the advice that we give you, that if you improve, first of all, the water, how you treat everything, the hygiene generally, your product will meet the requirement. Even small things like labeling, in terms of even how you receive the raw materials. Do you have test equipment? If you look at those small farms that are doing Misflower, some of them initially, before we started the campaign against, the aflatoxin, they did not have simple kits to test whether even the maize they are buying has higher moisture content. Obviously, you do not expect to achieve, high quality, food grade, Misflower if you have not tested even the moisture content, and the kit is not very expensive. Of course, this interaction and our policy is geared toward making them understand KEBS is not a policeman. KEBS is there to facilitate, to help them get the S mark so that they can trade. Quite often, I get a lot of complaints from farmers here in Kenya asking me, why are we buying this product from our neighboring countries? But the answer I give them is, we have integrated within the East African community, expanded our market from 50 million to 150 million, and now DRC is ready to join us, will be a bit even bigger. The only way as Kenyans we can be able to benefit out of this pact and agreement is if we set up and organize ourselves, manufacture high quality product, they are preferred outside Kenya, and then as Kenyans, we are patriotic enough to buy our locally manufactured product. O'Brien, if I tell you an experience I've experienced in the recent past is, when I was driving along Hur Highway, a young man wanted to sell me, oranges, and his strongest selling point was that these are from the south. I will not mention the country. These are from the southern part of Kenya, and I asked myself, of Africa, and I asked myself, what would happen to oranges from Makueni? So our people must appreciate and like our product. When you see a good, well-maintained Land Rover, most probably it is being driven by a Briton, not because he doesn't know there is another more efficient, probably if there is another vehicle, maybe from Japan, but he prefers to drive that. If you buy a coat that is not properly fitting or something like that, but locally made, that would be a good.
How is KEBS facilitating the implementation of achievement of the Big Four agenda, especially on manufacturing?
Kenya Bureau of Standards, we are also a regulator and a national standard body, in that we make standards that are appropriate for small, medium enterprises, for manufacturers. And we have developed quite a number of standards. We have also set regulations that are geared toward improvement of our trade. I would say a number of standards that we've been able to come up with that would help and stimulate the growth of manufacturing is in leather, in textile, even in cotton, so that people can be able to grow more cotton for textile. We have other standards for affordable housing, EPS, expanded polystyrene material that is used for, manufacturing boards that are used for, housing, and that is boosting manufacturing. So a number of standards that we have developed are geared toward improvement of, manufacturing sector. I would say even when you look at, castings of waffles that are used for, in building sector, like, doing the slab to reduce the weight of the building. We have now standards for that. We have standard for, stabilized soil blocks. And this is not only going to help in the Big Four agenda manufacturing, but it's also going to help in people that are also manufacturing, press machines that make this kind of products. So in general, in development of standards, that is one of the areas. The other one we have done, like I have said, is regulation in terms of ensuring compliance of product coming into the country. Because if we are getting substandard product and we are enforcing standard for locally manufactured product, they will not be able to compete. For example, if you are manufacturing electrical cables in the country that meet the standards, and these electrical cables are very, very critical in terms of ensuring safety of the building, so that you do not have overloads and buildings that are burning up. We have now intensified testing of substandard cables that are coming from outside, and many other products, including even cooking pan. If you look, for example, we have been enforcing implementation of fortification. Edible oils that were coming into the country without fortification. We have now, we had a crackdown, and we are not now allowing substandard product coming, and therefore the manufacturers are able to produce more. So these are some of the initiatives that we are doing to improve, manufacturing sector.
You banned about 21 brands of Misflower. What became of those brands, and were people prosecuted for selling substandard Misflower to the public?
Our market surveillance, which was not initially there, has been doing a great job moving around there. And we do not just specifically go to the big supermarkets. We go to the very small ones as well, pick samples and bring them to our labs. And once we find they are not meeting the requirement, like the Misflower that we detected that had higher aflatoxin than 10 parts per billion, we had to first of all communicate to consumers to advise them that these batch numbers, batches of these brands do not meet the requirements. Secondly, we did write to these manufacturers to cease production until we are satisfied that they meet the requirement. And like for example, in case of maize meal, the biggest challenge is the maize. Once the maize is okay, then we have no any other issue other than to allow them to continue. We've been working very closely with the Competition Authority of Kenya because our our Standard Act is not very strong in terms of you know, the legal aspect. We are not able to prosecute very effectively. The punishments are very lenient. We are working together with the competition you know, authority, and some of them, you know, the process is ongoing in terms of prosecuting these people. But other than that, we have had a very successful campaign against aflatoxin. Compliance has improved. Most of the manufacturers now do have labs. It was not there. They now admit. We had a session with Cereal Millers Association, and they are accepting that as much as they were saying there's self-irrigation, there's all these, even the Grain Millers Association, we have had a discussion with them. The key thing is it is their responsibility to ensure the product meet the requirement.
There are various government agencies that are involved in the regulation and enforcement of standards in this country. And you have mentioned some of them. You know, we are talking about NACADA, you know, in the alcohol and cigarette industry. We're talking about KEBS in the animal health. We're talking about institutions like Anti-Counterfeit Agency. You know, so you end up having almost 10, you know, agencies playing somehow in the same league and doing the same job. So where do you converge, and where do you feel like we're having overlapping roles in the enforcement of standards in this country?
Yes, I want to say that each of these regulators are operating under their statute. And for Kenya Bureau of Standards, we are operating under the Standard Act, Cap 496 of the laws of Kenya, that give us the mandate to develop standards and also ensure the product that are consumed meet the quality requirement. I want to agree that there is some overlap in terms of, for example, when it comes to food, we have, you know, the Ministry of Health, Public Health. We have, for alcoholic beverage, we have NACADA. We have Pharmacy Poisons Board when it comes to medicines. We have NEMA for environmental issues. We have EPRA for petroleum product. But it has never been a very big major issue to us. It has always been a very major issue for people who probably do not want to meet the requirement, because if you are manufacturing the right quality product and KEBS draw samples from your farm, your company, and you know, Ministry of Health also do the same. As long as you meet the requirement, it should not be a very big challenge. However, I would want to say that we are developing the national quality policy that is going to define first and foremost what each one is expected to do. This is a work in progress, and I believe out of the national quality policy, the interministerial you know, discussions will continue, where we'll be able to converge and agree this is your boundary. We do not want to also have many licenses for, you know, a certain company having, you know, several licenses, duplication of this. But in terms of meeting the requirement, assuming a perfect and ideal situation, if an officer from KEBS comes and draws sample from maybe your plant and test, and probably in another day someone else come and it still meets the requirement, you shouldn't be so overworried. However, like I have said, we are having an engagement on how this can be done.
Do you feel that you know, some unscrupulous traders may be exploiting those loopholes at the expense of Kenyans?
The multi-agency you know, approach has been applied and is quite effective in that we work very closely together with a number of agencies. When you're dealing with the contraband goods, or when you're dealing with the illicit or substandard, you'll find you'll have an officer from a counterfeit authority, you'll have KRA, you'll have KEBS, you may have KFEs depending on whether it is grains or something like that. I wouldn't say really that unscrupulous traders exploit this. What I would say is that what we need to do is to have very tight laws that make it very punitive for someone to be trading in substandard product or counterfeit. And we have work in progress in terms of amending our Standard Act to be able to have an effective legal instrument to deal with these people, because in other countries, in different countries, it's impossible for you to purport to be selling substandard product and continue in business in future. I mean, the punishment is so heavy that you would not want to attempt to do that. So once these all reforms are complete, we are sure we'll be moving toward almost zero, zero tolerance in terms of this, substandard products.
Last year, there were a number of buildings that collapsed, unfortunately killing and maiming, a number of people. And when I had a conversation with the National Construction Authority, engineer Kedge, and he raised something, and he said that, one of the challenges they're having is people using substandard material like steel, cement, nails, and so much. And so in institutions like NCA, I mean, how do you work together to ensure that, even the equipment being used and the material being used in our, in our buildings, meet the necessary or the needed standards?
As a country, yes, we have witnessed very devastating, issues where building collapses under construction, and other also collapse even after they have also been occupied. And I would say we've been working closely with the National Construction Authority, and in last year we had a stakeholder engagement where we invited, manufacturers of building materials here in Kenya Bureau of Standards, and we did a presentation, both of us here in KEBS, trying, and also National Construction Authority, trying to find a solution to this issue. Of course, out of that workshop, each one of us, raised a bit of concerns in terms of why this trend has actually continued despite formation of National Construction Authority. But I would like to say a number of things do go wrong when you see a building coming down. One is that probably the design, the structural design is not was not properly done, or was not done by an engineer, was done by a quack, or the implementation of this structural design was not well implemented by the contractor. And this is the role of the National Construction Authority in terms of enforcement, to ensure that as you probably make beams, columns, the concrete that you form meet the strength that is required. If you look at the whole issue, you'll see, yes, it is true. If the cement does not meet the requirement in terms of the parameters, the strength, then you may not be able to have a proper concrete strength that is required. And this may cave in under the load. If the steel, the structural, the tensile strength of the steel is not good enough, then even if you are to use as designed, probably you may not achieve also the tensile strength of those columns and beams, or generally the load-bearing, members. If the sizes and dimensions of the steels are undersized, you are likely again to assume that you are using, diameter 16 or 20, or you're using slightly less. So our activities here in KEBS right now, we have focused in steel, and especially reinforcing steel, and also cement. And we've been undertaking surveillance to ensure that manufacturers are producing these materials as per the standards. But like I have said, assembly of all this is under the supervision of the contractor on site. At every stage, there should be supervision, especially at the foundation level, at when they are doing slab or beams, or there should be enforcement. And I think what we should be working toward is building capacity for enforcement, whether it is through counties, whether it is through the National Construction Authority, involving the Engineers Board of Kenya. And like today we had a Board of Engineers of Kenya coming to understand how we operate in KEBS, and we have emphasized the need for us to work together to ensure that engineering structures, the materials, the education and training and skills are well harmonized. The accreditation of these courses, so that we have professional people as engineers. So I think it is quite unfortunate that this has happened, and we as KEBS are committed to ensure that the raw materials meet the requirement. And we are not talking just about steel. We are also talking about the roofing materials, where we would want to have, what you buy is what you get. You do not buy roofing sheets that are going to fade. The roof is very important, and many others.
Controversy, has always dodged KEBS, in the past when it comes to issuing of big ticket contract. And actually there is one that is currently ongoing, especially on the inspection of imported motor vehicles in this country. How is this affecting the importation of standard vehicles into this country? And are you looking at closing and bringing this controversy to an end, so that the inspection of motor vehicles can continue unhampered?
It is quite unfortunate that as the Managing Director of Kenya Bureau of Standards, I'm always addressing the issues of motor vehicle inspection, and especially second-hand vehicles. I would be very proud if we were discussing how we can improve the quality of assembled vehicles within the country. But I hope with the new standard KS 15/2019, which limit the number of years for certain categories of vehicles, like passenger commercial vehicles, we are saying now, going way forward, will not accept vehicles that are older than 3 years. For certain prime movers, also 3 years. And we are looking forward to a bright future where we can be able to manufacture our own vehicles. This debate has been ongoing for a very long period of time. This is vendor wars, where this is a tender where a number of international inspection bodies are interested in doing this service. But as KEBS, our main focus has always been to ensure that the vehicles that come into the country meet the requirement. And the code of practice for inspection of motor vehicles that we run is very, very detailed in terms of what we desire to have. That the mechanical systems for the vehicle should be sound and good to offer the service for even these second-hand vehicles. Our main focus has not been to who get the job, but what do we have vehicles that are not meeting the requirement, the standard. And that is, we also appreciate that if we get the wrong person who is doing inspection of vehicles, we will not be able to get the quality vehicles, and customers will be cheated while they are importing these vehicles. So I do not want to discuss this matter so much. Because the tender is ongoing, I want to emphasize that our main focus as KEBS is to ensure that whoever gets the job has capacity, capability to do the job, and is able to give us vehicles that meet the standards.
As we bring this interview to a close, I mean, when you look at the last 10 years, KEBS has been led by about 5 managers. And this is not good for business continuity. This is not good, management practice. How best do you think this can be addressed to ensure there is a business continuity?
There has been a very high turnover of the Managing Director of Kenya Bureau of Standards. And like you've said, it is not very good for, for us as a country. in terms of understanding the international systems, in terms of participation in trade activities, in terms of development of standards. It's always good to have a continuity for someone who understands the background. But I would like to say that security of tenure is very critical for an organization like Kenya Bureau of Standards. That for us to remain the regional hegemony, we need to have a stable national standard body that can be able to lead in standard matters, that is able to assure, because we are simply a gateway, that we are able to deliver this goods to other neighboring countries that meet the standards. So I would say, yes, it does affect the organization. However, I would want to say that KEBS is very strong in Africa. We consider ourselves as number 3 in terms of the measurement systems, in terms of our capabilities, in terms of our reputation. There are so many national standard bodies that normally come to benchmark with Kenya Bureau of Standards. Locally here we may look weak, but we are very strong. I was appointed in the council, ISO council member, and I'll be participating in my first council meeting starting from tomorrow. So Kenya Bureau of Standards is very reputable outside there.
KEBS is a highly respected standards body, not only here in Africa, but around the world. But the fact that you have developed about 13,000 standards in this country, I mean, is a testament of what can be achieved. Where do you see KEBS going forward? Going
way forward, in terms of the mandate and our vision is to be a global leader in standard-based solution that provides confidence and quality to this country. Our desires is to ensure that we do not have substandard product, and we reduce the substandard. And I would want to make it very clear here that the cost of poor quality is very high. For example, when you import a substandard product, maybe a pipe fitting, you have to repair maybe 3 times in a year. And each and every time you invite a plumber in your house, you have to pay some fee. You'd rather buy that good quality item once. So in terms of inculcating the culture of quality and understanding, we are focusing in educating our people that quality will reduce our cost. If you're operating a factory, if it's a house, if you've put the quality tiles, roof, or any other electrical cables, you'll spend much, much less. So our focus is to educate people to understand the quality. What has happened outside there in developed world, people, if you observe them when they are buying product from the supermarket, they are more interested in the brands. If you watch people buying here, you'll see they are more interested in the price. We must relate these two and understand the quality is critical. There is no way a country can develop without standards, without quality.
Anything else? Because we have to come to the end.
I think I'm quite happy with the interview. Thank you very much.
Our conversation has been around reforming the Kenya Bureau of Standards, and of course the future of the entity in ensuring proper and enforcement of standards in this country. We have been talking to KEBS Managing Director, Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Njiraini. Thank you very much for watching Inside Government. Your time is highly appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.